Well, it's time for another mid-month update, this time for January 2023. I can't believe it's a new year. December was quite busy, so I missed that mid-month update. I apologize. We were traveling, it was the holidays, all that sort of stuff. Let me tell you all about what I'm reading right now, what I've been watching, what I've been playing, all that sort of stuff. Let's get right to it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Theo. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. As usual on these mid-month updates, I'll go ahead and leave timestamps down below. So I'll go ahead and try and split them up into like personal reading, book stuff, channel stuff, content, upcoming stuff, and then videos, video games, all that kind of stuff near the end. So if you want to skip to a particular section, you can go ahead and do that. Some of you may or may not know, but for Christmas as well as New Year's with a couple good friends of mine, as well as my wife, we were all in Florida at Disney World. We did Universal Studios. We did, the Magic Kingdom on Christmas. We did New Year's Eve party over there. We watched shows and did all that stuff. We had such a good time. I got my little buddy here, Sebastian. You guys probably know that I dressed up as Sebastian for Halloween, and my wife was Ariel, and our cat was Flounder. So we had a really good time. I was walking around with this guy for quite some time, and all the kids were super jealous. Some of the highlights for the trip was the Harry Potter world. I had seen it in the Universal in LA, in California, or Hollywood, I should say, but we had a blast. It was an absolute highlight. The Forbidden Journey ride, the Hagrid's magic, what is it called, the motorbike ride, the escape from Gringotts, where we actually got to go in Gringotts and see all the goblins and stuff. Like, it was such an epic trip, you guys. Disney was beautiful. I'd never been to Disney World. It was very expensive, especially for a Canadian with the currency exchange. I don't know if we'd ever be able to afford to do that again, especially with kids. It's kind of a shame, but a lot of the middle income families are kind of getting priced out of it because it's just very expensive, and it's a huge commitment to be able to go, and you really can't do it in like a day or two. You really do need like a week. Somehow we managed to get second row at the Grinchmas concert show. It was quite beautiful. The Grinch has become one of my favorite characters. The whole Dr. Seuss land there was done really well, and it was just magic all over the place. Universal, Disney, everything was just magic. Getting there was actually quite a story. You'll recall we had that crazy snowstorm. Well, most of North America had like a winter cold storm. In Canada, we had tons of snow, tons of ice. It was crazy. Our flights got canceled the night before we left. So of course we're freaking out. This is a trip that we planned well in advance. We paid for everything, and it's not a trip that we could get reimbursed for. Like, Disney doesn't do refunds. Yeah, we could get, reimbursed on the hotels, but really in terms of the Disney expense, we're kind of out of luck at that point. So we decided to look for other flights, and around Christmas and the holidays, you can't just jump on another plane. There simply aren't enough seats. I mean, it doesn't really matter how much money you have. You can't just book another plane or book another flight because everything's booked. People are going away for the holidays. And with all those cancellations and with all the crazy weather, they were getting fuller and fuller as the time went on. So we were out of luck for flights, and what we ended up doing was driving 3 hours south to Seattle. We managed to book kind of a last minute flight out of Seattle, and it was probably the most stress I've ever encountered when traveling. We saw massive cancellations. A lot of the airlines were canceling flights even out of Seattle because it was crazy freezing rain. And I have some pictures like outside of the runway. Everything was covered in ice. It was absolutely insane. They had 15, 20, 30 snow plows and icing machines and trucks driving all around, all together at different times. And we were just praying that we'd be able to fly out. And like 90% of the flights, I have a picture of the board as well that showed like 90% of the board was canceled. I'm talking like full-on canceled flights. There were a couple that were delayed. We were lucky enough where our flight got delayed sort of every hour for like 6 or 7 hours. And we ended up flying out 8 hours after we meant to fly out in the morning. So that's the best that we could do. We were so lucky when we finally arrived in Orlando. We were so thrilled to have made it. I still don't really understand how that worked because so many people were out of luck. So many families were kind of stranded, and we were hoping we wouldn't have to make that decision to drive back home and leave our trip behind. But luckily we managed to go. We flew Delta. They were amazing. We had such a good experience. So the trip was awesome. Near the end of the trip, I actually got a little bit sick. My wife and I and our friends later got sick. And so I was hoping to get back into jujitsu as soon as I came home, work off some of those chocolates and some of the Christmas treats and all that stuff. But I got sick, and jujitsu is a place where you really want to be clean and healthy, and you're very close with people. You're wrestling around and getting sweaty with people. So being sick in jujitsu is a no-no. So I'm just waiting to recover. I'm basically all good now. So I can't wait to get back into the grind and hopefully compete a couple times this year. I would also invite you guys to check out my 2023 goals video. I'll link that in the description, talking about my personal goals, my life, whatever, my reading goals, my channel goals, all that stuff. If you haven't checked that out, it's 2023 now. Might as well check it out now and see what I have planned. Let's talk about what I'm currently reading. Right now, I am reading Game of Thrones. I'm reading Game of Thrones for the first time in my entire life. I watched the show up until season 6, maybe something like that. And honestly, I remember moments, I remember characters. I have sort of a head canon of people, but really, I didn't really know the intricacies of the world and the story as richly as some other people do. So I was really going in with a blank slate, and I'm having a blast. I am having an absolute blast with this book. I can understand why people say it's one of the best, series of all time. It's one of the best first books in a series of all time. I was going through a little bit of fantasy burnout, I think. I started Empire of the Vampire as well as the third Lycanius book. And honestly, I got about halfway through and I'm just slowly finishing them. I'm probably 2/3 done Lycanius and 3/4 done Empire of the Vampire. And this has led to I'll talk about this later, but it's led to a bit of a delay in my wrap-ups and stuff, because November and December were really weird reading months. Now, take away the fact that in December I was traveling and all that stuff, and really, I thought that I'd have more time to read while away, but we're so busy and doing these, long days and seeing people and going out for meals and stuff that you come home and you're just tired. Even back at the hotel, I didn't want to be rude, and read while I'm with the wife on vacation. I was saving some of my books and stuff for the flights, but even on the flights, you guys, you get so tired. So my reading for November and December was really, really weird. I was bouncing around books. I was enjoying and kind of vibing with everything I was reading, but I wasn't able to latch onto something for long enough. So I would bounce around too much. And because of that, I didn't make as much progress as I otherwise probably would. So I'm almost done Empire of the Vampire. I'm almost done Lycanius. I've really put those two books down and I'm flying through Game of Thrones. I'm almost halfway through right now. I started it a day and a half, 2 days ago. And it's a 700, 800 page book, I think, if I recall correctly. So I'm flying through it. I'm really enjoying it. I haven't read medieval fantasy a whole lot, true medieval fantasy a whole lot, or at least it's been a while. So I'm completely vibing with it. I'm in love with it, and I can't wait to continue on with this read along. I also found myself flying through the last part of it, probably because I read that. I started October, end of October, and it creeped into November and December because it's such a long book. And I ended up savoring it. It ended up being my top book of the year of 2022. I just released my, top 5 books of 2022. Go ahead and check out that video if you haven't. I'd love for you to watch it. Let me know what your top books were as well. I ended up flying through that one near the end, over the last month or so, because of that sort of fantasy slump that I talked about. I didn't want to jump back into those fantasy books. I ended up gravitating towards Stephen King's It, as well as Game of Thrones now. I'm fully immersed. So I'll get back to those fantasy books. I'll finish those 2 up, and eventually you'll see my wrap-ups and all that stuff, and I'll let you guys know how I did. But for now, my main passion on the book side is Game of Thrones. I'm fully immersed. Can't wait to finish that. I also just picked up, it released, I think, today or yesterday, Prince Harry's memoir. I guess it's a memoir. It's called Spare. And my wife and I have been watching the Harry and Meghan show on Netflix. She's British. She was born here in Canada, but her whole family is from England. And so, she has that tie to the royals and stuff. And she's always sort of been interested. And it's a very, very much a part of our culture, and Canada is part of the Commonwealth. And so we always grew up, hearing about the Queen and stuff. So I was curious about that. And the show was quite interesting, but also I'm curious about the book. So I picked it up. It was $15 on Audible in Canadian dollars, which is not that much. And I'm curious. I don't know when I'm going to read that, but that's kind of on the TBR when I want something like a memoir, when I want something that's a little bit different. It's narrated by Harry himself on the audiobook. So, that's on deck whenever I get to it. I'm also doing something that I've never ever done before, and that is a read-a-thon. I've always wanted to join one, but I never really was able to. I didn't want to disrupt my TBR too much to read those kinds of books, or, you know, to hit that criteria or whatever. I also didn't think that I could read enough to be sort of a valuable asset to a team. This one is the Keymark Read-A-Thon, and it's part of the Keymark Discord. I'm on Madison Goodyear's team, and maybe I'll put up a picture of kind of like the criteria or the types of books that we're trying to hit and how you can earn points and stuff. This one is going from January 6th to February 6th. So it's already underway. We're already on teams. I'm just letting you guys know that I'm part of it and that I'm trying to do it. And it's really cool because this read-a-thon was sort of designed for people that, you know, it was designed in such a way where you don't have to completely disrupt your TBR to be part of it. And you don't have to read a ton of books to earn points. For example, you know, Game of Thrones I'm reading, I'm probably going to finish in the next couple days, and that is going to tick off a lot of boxes. Like there's a book with a weapon on the cover and an animal companion and something written within this time period, and, you know, this type of book, and that, like, it fits a lot of that criteria in just one book. So this is kind of a cool one to do. I'm hoping I can get through some books this month and be able to contribute on the read-a-thon side, because like I've never done one before. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Madison's team, don't really know how many people ended up on it, but hopefully we do okay. And I'll let you guys know maybe in a wrap up, like how this whole thing turns out. Cause like I said, first ever read-a-thon, and don't really have to shake up my TBR too much. It'll be interesting to see what type of points I can hit with the books that I've already planned for. On the channel side, I just want to say a huge thank you. I just hit 1,300 subscribers, which is like insanity to me. I'm so grateful. So cool. I started this channel like 9 months ago in April, and I'm just having a blast. I've met so many amazing people. I have amazing patrons that graciously support the channel. Like, I'm so excited. We have a patron call coming up later this month. I'll leave a link to the Patreon down below. It's never expected, but it's immensely appreciated. And yeah, I'm excited to chat with the patrons and catch up and that type of stuff. Always fun to talk about books and life and all that stuff on our catch up calls. And as usual, the Discord link as well is in the description. If you're not part of the Discord and you want to join, feel free to do that as well. That's where you can find me most of the time, and you can talk with a bunch of people about different genres and different books. We have a huge community now, pushing 600 people. So it's just amazing. A lot of things happening, really fun, enjoying myself. I'm hugely grateful, and hopefully the channel continues to do its thing and I continue to have fun. And for as long as that's the case, I will be here. I'll also invite you to check out my 2023 goals video again, where I talk about maybe, you know, some of the goals for the channel and the content and my commitment to it, and how I'm trying to, you know, kind of the philosophy that I'm trying to have over here, and just trying to have fun. On the content side of things, coming up, I will remind you guys that I'm away for at least a week, potentially longer, near the end of January. And so that might put a little bit of a wrench or disrupt the flow of content in some way. But I was happy that, you know, when I went to Florida in December for those almost 2 weeks, I was able to have some content come out. A lot of you guys didn't know I was away because there was still a video every week. So yeah, I'm hoping to record a few videos in advance so that even if I'm away, you'll have something from me. A lot of videos coming down the pipe, and maybe I'll let you guys know a little bit about what you can expect. Before I do that, in December, I did have 2 videos come out. Well, December, January. So I had 5 most disappointing reads of the year that came out, I think, on Boxing Day. Interesting list of books. They're not bad books. I was just disappointed. They just didn't do what I was hoping. So that video came out, and then also my January TBR, doing a few read-alongs, and, you know, probably overcommitted like I usually do, but that one came out January 1st for the new year. I also dropped recently my top 5 of 2022. I was told that that was a interesting, eclectic list of books, and I'm kind of proud of that. There's sci-fi, horror, fantasy, there's a classic on there, craziness. So check that out if you haven't already. But I had a pretty good year. I read about 45-ish books, and choosing 5 was pretty hard. I could have chose 10. Some of those might have been honorable mentions. You know, if I chose more than 5, I felt like I was going to encroach on a larger percentage of my total sample of like books that I've read. So I wanted to really, you know, make the hard choice and trim the fat a little bit and really select like 5 of my overall year. And that was hard to do, but I'm happy with the list. and I hope you are too. Let me know if you've read any of those and what you think of my top 5 of 2022. As I alluded to, there's some videos to come. I'll let you guys know what's down the pipe. This is no particular order, but there's going to be a reaction to 1-star reviews of some of my favorite books. I can't wait to finally record that one. I recorded part of it, but I had to re-record it, and I'm also doing a little bit of screen recording and stuff. So I'm going to re-record that one. Sorry that hasn't come out yet. My Christmas book gifts show and tell. I was lucky enough to receive some gracious gifts from viewers, subscribers, friends of mine. I'm going to show you guys what I got for Christmas on the book side. A Fireside Friday chat is coming up with some guests. I would invite you in the comments maybe to let me know who you would like to see on the channel, who you'd like me to talk to. And if you have any specific questions for that person, let me know as well. You can always private message me or email me or whatever. All my contacts, all my socials are in the description. So that one's coming up. I'd like to continue with those Fireside Friday chats because I love them. Some wrap-ups are still coming. I have to do my November, December together. I mentioned a bit of a slump in November, December, and that's kind of why that hasn't come to fruition yet, but it's coming, I assure you. I'll do some reading sprints soon as well. The read-a-thon wrap up, let you guys know how that went, my experience with it, all the books that sort of, how the points got tallied and maybe who won and that kind of stuff. That's a video that's coming. And I also have a fun Canadian booktuber collab video that's been in process for a while. I've recorded my part, but there's some people that still need to finish off theirs. And then you'll see a playlist of a bunch of videos come out around the same time for a Canadian booktuber collab. So that'll be super fun as well. I was also invited on Johana's channel coming up February 10th or 11th to share my thoughts on A Game of Thrones, the first book in A Song of Ice and Fire, as part of this whole read-along discussion that's happening. A lot of other booktubers are either co-hosting it or joining for it or whatever. There's going to be a ton of videos coming out for that. So I was invited as a first-time reader to share my thoughts and theories about Game of Thrones, the first book, and I'm so excited. I'm in love with it. I know it's going to be probably one of my top 5 books of the year already, and it's like the first book I'm reading this year, so I'm really excited for that. So keep a lookout. You probably already know about that read along and what's happening, but if you don't, I'll try and link the video to the introduction, that talks about what's happening, the schedule, and where these video discussions are going to take place. I'll try and leave a link to that in the description if I remember. One last thing is myself and Kayla from Kay's Hidden Shelf collabed on a video with one of my favorite booktubers, Josh, over at Red Fury Books. I'll leave a link to his year-end awards video that's so well done and so fun to watch. And let's just say that you might recognize some announcer voices. All right, let's wrap this up with some games and TV movie stuff. To be honest, I haven't really gamed for a while. I did get my hands on the next gen upgrade, the free upgrade of The Witcher 3. So if you already owned The Witcher 3, they came out with a next gen upgrade for like the PS5 and I believe the PC as well. So that one came out. I got my hands on that and it's quite stunning. It's actually beautiful with all the new ray tracing technology and all the crazy hardware that the PS5 has. It looks incredible. I did play part of The Witcher back in the day on a very spec'd out PC with some mods and stuff, and that looked incredible. I don't know if it looks better. It looks much better than it did. I still don't know if it's on the scale of like what a modded computer is capable of, but I'm having fun. I'm just filling the gaps with games here and there. I'm not gaming a whole lot, but I did pick up The Witcher, and when I have time, because you can sink hundreds of hours in that game, it's one of my favorite games of all time. It is nice to be back with the characters and the world and the music and the atmosphere and all that, but I just don't have time. So I picked it up to try. It looks beautiful, and when I get to it, I get to it. On that note, I'm also still kind of playing God of War Ragnarok, as well as finishing off the Spider-Man Miles Morales games. I'm just, fitting those in between reading, but I'm trying to prioritize reading a lot right now, especially at the beginning of the year. I really want to prioritize reading. So the game stuff is just filling in the gaps. One thing I will say is I'm very excited for the Hogwarts Legacy game that's coming out February 10th, 2023. This is the open world wizard game that fans of the universe have always wanted. It does take place about 100 years before Harry Potter and those events. So it's not going to follow the same characters, but you might hear, references of certain characters and things like that. But you're not going to follow like Harry and Hermione and Ron and whatever, but you are going to be able to experience Hogwarts and the forest and, Hogsmeade probably, and like all these other places that we've always wanted to be able to roam and wander and explore in a video game. I think that's what you're going to be able to get here. So I'm excited. That one is probably going to end up being a priority. And it's also going to coincide with my Harry Potter reread that I'm reading with my friends. I'm going to be reading all those books again this year, probably doing them primarily on audio, though I was lucky enough to get a gift of the first book in the illustrated edition. And that book makes me want to buy the rest of them in the illustrated edition as well, because it's very beautiful. So I'm probably going to want to read those books and play a little bit of that game when it comes out as a priority at the same time, but we'll kind of see how much time I have. On the movie side, very recently, my wife and I just wrapped up the It movies, parts 1 and 2, back to back on different nights, and I enjoyed them. There's a lot of changes from the book, but in other ways, it was actually quite faithful. You know, I enjoyed them both for what they were. Again, it's a situation where I would probably have to say that I enjoyed the book a lot more. What Stephen King is able to do in 1,200 pages of a book is just, you cannot do that in a movie. So I thought it was good. My wife thought it was good, as you know, for someone who just watched them as movies and has never read the books or the book and doesn't know the story or the characters maybe as intimately as I do now. She enjoyed it for what it was, and for the most part, I thought it was pretty well done. There was tons of crazy imagery, a lot of frightening moments, a lot of really cool effects, and some images that are going to stay with me, I think. It was a very scary movie, probably scarier than the book. The book had a lot of suspense and dread and all that kind of stuff, but this had some freaky, like grotesque, monstery images, and I was vibing. I enjoyed it. So for what it was, I enjoyed it, and it had some very impressive moments. Again, I would always prefer the book. In this case, if you've read the book and you haven't seen these movies, I would say give them a shot. Lastly, I also heard about A Man Called Otto, the remake that's happening with Tom Hanks, A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman, one of my favorite books that I've read, I think, over the last few years. I guess it's to target the North American audience, or I guess the American audiences. A Man Called Otto. I don't know if that's entirely necessary. I guess the only adaptation we have is the really faithful and quite beautifully done Swedish version that's like dubbed. So, you know, if this helps get the story out to a wider audience and, you know, introduces more people to Frederick Bachman's books and writing, then I'm all for it. At first, I wasn't really sure what to think. I actually saw the book A Man Called Otto, you know, in the airport kiosk in the book stand or whatever. And it was just weird to see that, because I feel like I'd be cheating on Uwe and like the original text, but really it's just a name change and a bit of maybe a cultural change to make it more relatable. But really a grumpy old man who, you know, finds joy in different ways later on in life after some things happen to him, and he has a little bit of a change of heart. That transcends culture, in my opinion. So I don't know if this was necessarily needed, but like I said, if it helps the story and the author get out to more people, then I'm all for it. So I'll probably be watching that in theaters, because I am a Tom Hanks fan, and this movie and book, like the movie that I saw was well done. The book is one of my favorites. So I'd be curious to see how this one goes. So when this one comes out in theaters, I'll probably watch it. So that's it for me, guys. I apologize again for not having a December mid-month update, but it was a travel-y, holiday, busy season, month, whatever. And so I'm going to try and continue with these on a mid-month basis, because on a weekly basis, there's not a whole lot for me to talk about. My life's not that interesting, and I can't read that fast because I'm not a robot. My phone is buzzing. I'm getting busy. Until next time, if you like the vibe, go ahead and subscribe. I'll catch you real soon on the next one.